Hey everyone, Q&A Thursday time again. My name is Rachel Harrison Sund, answering your low content publishing questions. All right, first question today is from, I'm sorry, there's a few names today that I'm really going to murder, so I apologize in advance. Here's the first one. Aminul, I'm so sorry if I got that wrong. Please forgive me. How do you portray to people that you have a better interior than the competition? I understand that the majority of shoppers shop using their phones, and the Amazon phone app doesn't have the look inside feature. So I don't really have any specific tricks on this one. For me, it is all about the look inside feature. That if that's not available on the phone, then I would probably rely on my description and really try and maximize that as much as possible. I usually, in my description, I'll have like a brief introductory sort of very short paragraph, just, a summation of what the product is. And then I always have features or details or something like that listed out in bullet point form underneath that. So that's a great way to just let customers know exactly what they're going to find in your book and, the different features that you would like to, promote in your book. So those are kind of the two things that I use. And like you said, if there's no look inside feature on the phone, then probably people are going to be relying a lot more heavily on the book cover. So definitely put more emphasis on creating a good quality cover. I mean, you want to be doing that anyways, but I think when you don't have the benefit of the look inside, people are probably looking even more heavily on your cover. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, like I said, the description is probably the second best way to convey what you actually have on the interior of your book. All right, next question is from Ashley. And Ashley wants to, so Ashley asks, I want to follow your advice to emphasize medium to low competition keywords for the 7 keyword slots, but they are proving hard to find. I know you've said you use Merchant Words. Does that tool give you those keywords with significant search volume, yet low keyword competitiveness? So I have used Merchant Words in the past quite a bit. And the way that Merchant Words works is it will give you, you'll put in your keyword, it will list all the related keywords, and then it will give you their search volume. And when I say related keywords, I mean keywords that have the main one that you've just entered within it. Then it'll show you the search volume, so how many people per month are searching for that keyword. And then it will give you something called a depth score. I think it's 1 to 10. And the idea with the depth score is when you type it into the search bar and that drop down comes down, is it the first option, the second, the third, and so on? The ones closer to the top are going to be more competitive. So anything with a 1, that's the most competitive. And then obviously the higher the number, the least competitive. So to be honest, I don't pay too much attention to that. What I normally do is I kind of go back manually and search for that keyword in Amazon. And then I just compare the search volume to how many results I'm getting. And so my approach is a little bit more manual. I don't just rely on that depth score because it doesn't always seem to be perfectly accurate. So, obviously the less volume you have, the more search volume you have, and the fewer search results you get would indicate a less competitive keyword. And, the fewer search volume per month that you get and the more search results you get, so I just want to make sure I'm not mixing that up, then the higher competitive keywords. So that is basically how I assess a lower versus moderate versus higher competition keyword. I've just recently started using Publisher Rocket, formerly known as KDP Rocket, I believe. And that works similarly, but instead of a depth, they just have a competitive score out of 100. And the closer to 100 it gets, the more competitive it is. So it's kind of doing that manual work for you. I do kind of still like to rely on some manual parts of it though. Like if I see a keyword in Merchant Words or Publisher Rocket that has a high search volume, I'm still going to go back to Amazon and enter that keyword and just take a look at the results myself, because that's just going to give me a lot more information than just relying on this kind of vague number that the software is serving up. So I still like to take that manual step and actually look at how many results are showing up, and then looking at the quality of the results too. So I do tend to rely on my own instincts and not just rely on that software, but where I find the software really helpful is just giving me that monthly search volume. I find that really, really helpful. And then I just pair that with my own intuitions and, my manual process of going back to Amazon and just looking at the how many results and what the results actually are. Okay, so next name that I'm going to attempt and probably butcher, Pshemik. I hope I got that right. Let me know if I did. Okay, so Pshemik asks, when you narrow down the keyword and you find one with a couple hundred results, bestsellers rank on first page, but it says volume is 0 a month, would you choose it? So if there are a couple hundred results for a keyword, but it's showing that there's 0 search volume, what that's saying to me is that they're basically ranking for a keyword that no one's looking for, because if there's 0 search volume, it means that no one's actually looking for that book. So if they are making sales, then probably what's happening is they're making sales because people are finding that book via a completely different keyword that people are searching for. So I would never use a keyword that has a 0 monthly search volume. It means that nobody is looking for it. But like I said, if you look at the bestsellers rank and those books are actually selling well, then probably what's going on is they're ranking for other keywords. So you can take a look at those books, look in their title and their subtitle, series, see if you can pinpoint any other keywords that they might be using, and then do your validation stage on those specific keywords. But I definitely wouldn't use one that has a search volume of 0, because it just means no one's looking, and so it's just not going to be useful for you. Okay, so the second part of the question is, do you do your keyword searching based on books department or the main Amazon page? So, we are selling books in the books department, so I think that is the most important one to look at. But I do actually look at both, and the reason is because people don't always go to Amazon and then click on the department and then hit search. In fact, from my own personal experience, oftentimes I just go to Amazon and I just search right away what I'm looking for. I don't bother using the department's drop-down menu. So I like to look at both. Sometimes you'll find that the number is exactly the same. Sometimes you might find a big discrepancy there. But yeah, like I said, really it is about the books department, but I think a lot of people are searching in just the main department. So I do look at both. And like I said, I rely on my own instincts a lot. So I'll often just kind of have a hunch on a keyword. I may not get... I don't base it all solely on just the data. And, I'm sure that's probably not a very satisfactory answer, but it is the truth. I will look at both, and then I'll just kind of assess based on both of those numbers. And like I said, sometimes they're going to be exactly the same. But in the end, I think taking both into account is probably a reasonable approach. All right, so next question is from Sheila. There seems to be 2 color options to choose from, black and white and color. If you choose color, does that refer to both the cover and the interior? And are people just not taking advantage of interior color? And can you only have color covers? So, a couple of questions there. If you choose black and white, you're just choosing black and white for your interior. There is no option to choose black and white for your cover. if you did want to have a black and white cover, you would just create your cover as a black and white document. I don't really see any benefit to that. I think, color is obviously much more eye-catching, but if you've got a design that, say, I've done quite a few that are just simply white text on a black background. I mean, that's technically black and white. That's part of the design. But I don't think there's any reason to create a black and white cover unless it's integral to the design of that cover. And then the reason that people aren't taking advantage of interior color, some people do, but the thing about choosing color is that it just makes your printing cost go up. So if you can price your book at a price where that's taken into consideration, then that doesn't need to be a problem. If you think that you can create a full color book and add the cost of that printing into your price and actually make sales at that price level, then I would say go ahead and do that. I think most people don't, just because it does, like I said, it adds to the printing cost. And a lot of the interiors that we're creating don't rely on color, and it's not absolutely necessary. So if you're doing like a lined journal or a bullet journal, it's not really necessary to have color in there. If you're doing a more, really complex designed, like a gratitude journal or some sort of journal with prompts where you think color would really elevate your design, then you can do that. You just have to decide, am I going to eat that printing cost? So, I'll price it competitively, but my royalty will be less. Or do I want to just add that printing cost onto the final price, essentially passing it on to the customer? And, do I think my book can sell at that elevated price point? And if the answer is yes, go for it. If you think that's something that will help your book stand out, then I would say experiment with it. And you can always re-upload a different interior later on. So if you wanted to try one with color and put it at that higher price point and it wasn't selling, you could always just upload a black and white interior later on down the line and reduce your price point. So it's up to you. This thing it's all about experimentation. So, I would just always be experimenting as much as you can. And you kind of just, in all honesty, kind of fail your way there and just try different things to see what works, see what doesn't. If something works, double down on that. If something doesn't work, don't keep doing the same thing that's not working. Okay, so final question and final name I'm going to murder. I'm so sorry. Okay, Chiman, I'm so sorry. I know that's wrong. Please forgive me. Okay, so is most of your success 80-20, i.e. from a handful of titles? And do you think that if you started running AMS ads on the books that haven't sold in months or ever, would you see results on those? Wondering if it's worth it for books that I thought had a shot, but they never went anywhere. So first part of the question, yes, I have absolutely noticed the 80-20 principle at play for me in my business. That means 20%, 80% of my income originating from 20% of my books. And absolutely. I think I've mentioned before, when I did have about 800 books, only 400 of them, so that's half, made any sales whatsoever. So half of them made 0 sales. And then from that 400, most of those were just, 1 or 2 sales a month, or maybe only had 1 or 2 sales ever. And, at one point when I had I think it was about a $20,000 month, half of that, $10,000, was from one single book. Then there was a second book where I think it made maybe $6,000. And then the rest of it, I think I had like a third book that made a couple thousand. And the rest of it was just all the rest of those 400 books, a sale here, a sale there. So absolutely, 80-20 rule definitely applies. And I think it does to most people. And I think that can be discouraging because, if you look at it from the sort of pessimistic side of things, it's like, wow, half the books I created didn't make a single sale. That sucks. But the rest of them kind of do make up for it. So Yeah, at any given point, definitely half of my income was coming from one or two books. And it is great when you have one of those books take off like that. But to be honest, it's also a really scary place to be, because if something happens to that book and it just doesn't continue to sell, then half of your income's gone. So while it is nice to have those one or two books that take off, it is also a little bit more secure to have it spread out across many books, even if it's just selling, a few here and a few there, all of them combined. If that adds up, I think that's actually a nice place to be, because if one of those books tanks, then it doesn't really affect your bottom line too much. Whereas with me, my book that was making $10,000 a month, that was a planner. So there was a shelf life attached to that book. When the end of the year came around, and I was surprised that book continued to sell well into the third quarter, and even in the fourth quarter. I could not explain why people were buying a 2018 planner, in like September or something like that, but people were, and I was happy to ride it out. But, once the end of the year rolls around, if you're in that situation, you kind of have to hope that the 2019 version of that same planner takes off in the same way. And, it might not. So anyways, those are my comments on that. The second half of the question, do I think that you should run AMS ads on books that haven't sold in months or at all? No, I don't recommend that. I only recommend, and first let me just say, I have never actually ran AMS ads. So I'm not speaking from a place of experience here. I have ran Facebook ads on fiction books. So that's a totally different ballgame. So I've got some experience with ads on books, but I don't have experience specifically with AMS ads on low content books. So I'll just say that from the outset. But having said that, if your book just hasn't sold, then people don't want it. And putting ads on it is not going to help that. Then you're just throwing more money at something that no one's interested in, and you're probably going to just lose money. Where I would recommend ads is if you've got a book that is already proven successful and you want to try and amplify that success. So if you've had a book that's having relative success, and I don't think it needs to be some, gangbuster runaway success, but if it's starting to sell regularly, a few copies, then yeah, try an ad on that one book and track the results and see how that goes. And if you start seeing success from that ad, then you can think about a second book, another second book that is having some success. So I would only ever recommend placing ads on books that you are already succeeding with somewhat. It doesn't have to be a huge success, but I think it has to be proven. It has to be making some sales. That is validation that people want your book. So it has to be validated in that way first. If you are validated by sales, that's the ultimate validation for your book, people are buying this book, that means people want it, then what the ad does is that will put your book in front of more eyeballs, and it is likely to generate more sales. So that is how ads work, and that to my mind is how you should approach ads. If you're placing an ad on a book that hasn't been validated by sales, then I don't think you're going to see any success at all. So I would definitely steer clear of doing that, because you don't want to throw good money away. All right, so that is it. That's the end of the questions, and that is the end of me murdering people's names. I apologize again for any mispronunciations there, and hope you found some value out of that. And let me know if you have further questions in the comments below, and I will round those up for next week. Thanks, and once again, it's almost the weekend, so have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.